Good afternoon. Good afternoon. As we continue, how y'all doing? It's the one and only yours truly, the Dream Maker, bringing you the best community talk show on a Thursday with your community activist, the one and only. She works hard. She's working now. She's been working ever since 8 o'clock this morning. She said, "I can't stop. No way tired." I'm talking about the one and only community activist, Miss Georgia Allen.
Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. And it is Thursday. And as always, it's always great to be here. Thank you so much, Henderson. And again, yes, I am Georgia F. Allen with GA for Justice. As always, I want to thank you, Henderson, Vaughn, a.k.a. Captain 85, a.k.a. the Dream Maker, and WVDM.
No doubt about it.
Really appreciative of you opening up the airwaves so that we can bring to our listening audience a conversation for information, a conversation for correction, as well as a conversation for transformation. My glasses are acting a little strange here. Okay. I want to give a disclaimer. Many of you are very much aware that I have worked in the civil rights area and community activist area for decades. Therefore, the various positions that I may take are mine and mine alone. I do not speak on behalf of any groups or any organizations. So with that being said, let's talk to you today about, are you ready for battle? Are you ready for battle? And as always, you guys know that I'm always focused on voting and the importance of voting, importance of being engaged, importance of participating in your community, because all politics are local. So therefore, are you ready for battle? Because we got battles going on all around us, and we know we cannot forget that. Our KWANZAA principle today is Kuumba. And you said, why Kuumba? Why creativity when you're talking about battle? Well, I chose creativity because the reason for creativity is to do always, as much as we can to leave our community more beautiful and more beneficial than we inherited it. So if you're going to get in the battle, you kind of want to win, right?
No doubt.
If you're going to get into a battle, you want to change outcomes. You see something very much wrong with the way things are now. And you're saying, you know what? We got to fight this thing. We got to fix some things. And we got to turn some things around. So the battle is not just a mental battle. It's an emotional battle. It's a physical battle. And so we therefore need persons who are ready for a fight. So today I'm going to tell you, let's get busy because we got work to do. And again, the topic is, are you ready for battle? And when you make a determination to go into battle, there are a few questions you must ask yourself. Do you know your enemy? Do you know your enemy? Because I think part of what is taking place in our society today is many people don't even know who the enemy is. So therefore, they're operating in a state of confusion. And if you don't know your enemy, you're in the wrong battle because you're fighting for the wrong reasons and you're fighting the wrong people. So we need to identify who the enemy is if we want to win the war. So as I said today, when you make a determination that you're going to have to go into battle, because I think that's where we are right now, you got to ask yourself a few questions. One, do you know your enemy? Another question you need to ask yourself is, do you know your purpose for going into battle? Do you understand why we are here where we are And the purpose that we have on behalf of our community, on behalf of our children, do we know what that purpose is? Do we have a why? Because, see, you can't do anything without a why. If you want a house, you need to have a why you're going to buy that house. Are you going to buy that house because it's less expensive for me to own a house than it is for me to live in an apartment? Are you going to buy a house because it's better for me to own a home than it is for me to live in an apartment? Or if I buy a house, I now have a place that's better for my children, and I'm living in a different school zone or living in a safer community than I was when I was living in an apartment. So you have to have a why. So why are you going into battle? Ask yourself that question. You got to have a need. What is the need? Is the need for that battle is because over and over again you hear that things are changing, and not for the greater good and not for your good, but these things are changing to affect just a small group of people. So you need to know what the need is, why we have to go into battle. You also have to ask yourself, what is my plan? Have you outlined a plan of action if you're going to go into battle? Because if you just up and decide that you're mad today, I'm so frustrated. This guy came in the office and, man, he's doing all kinds of stuff. He getting rid of all the government employees. My cousin, they work for the government. My mama worked for the government. Got sisters and brothers working for the government. So you got to ask yourself, if this person is doing grave harm and grave damage to you and your community, what is your plan? Do you have one? Have you written it down? Have you discussed it with persons that you trust to work with you in completing the plan? Because it's not enough to simply have a plan. You got to execute. You got to execute a plan. It is not enough simply to have a plan, even in writing, if you have no intentions of executing that plan. You also need to ask yourself a question. What is my strategy? What is my strategy as I go into battle? What is the strategy to attack this issue? So if the issue is education, and I just saw that the national government said, hey, I'm going to get rid of the Department of Education, and I'm no longer going to send money to the states. Then they can send that money that they receive to the local government. I'm just going to get rid of the Department of Education. Now, in all of these things that this new administration has talked about getting rid of, has he said he's going to send us our money back? Has he said he's going to send our money back? Because if you're not going to have a federal government, then we shouldn't be paying taxes, right?
That's right.
We should be okay. All right.
Get the bag.
And then you got to ask yourself, what are the particular tactics will we use when we are up against the enemies? You got to have a plan. You got to have a purpose. You got to have needs. You got to have some tactics. And then you got to ask yourself, what's the end game? If I put my plan into action, what is it that I want to see as my outcome? Do I want to see a better society, a better community? What is the end game? And what am I willing to sacrifice to achieve the outcome that I feel is the best outcome, not just for myself, because see, we got a whole bunch of selfish people running around here, as you say, grabbing the bag and picking up the bag, and and there are a lot of people say, hey, let me perform. Let me tap dance. And I walked away with my bag, but I really don't care that child on the corner is still starving, or that school that they're in are not meeting expectations. But I got my bag. I'm doing okay. So we have to also look at not only the government or the administration as the enemy, but where are our other enemies? And what are we going to do to eliminate them? Now, a lot of people think when somebody says eliminate, oh, when they say eliminate, that sounds like you're trying to kill somebody. No. When I look at eliminating them, I look at what products do they have out there. If I'm not buying your products, then I can also get other people not to buy your products. And I can make sure that you're not making money on my back, then I make you less effective. Okay? That's called the battle. It's an ongoing situation. It's not a one and done. It's an ongoing situation. So we want to make sure that when we're out here on the battlefield, we want to look at who we're surrounded by. So you got to take a look at your team. What does your team look like? Do you have a team of slackers? You ready to go to battle, and you find out the best of the best of the best friends that you have, they're not ready. So you may not want to bring them into battle with you. Do you have a bunch of servants? And I mean the kind of servants that scripture talks about. The ones that listen. The ones that know how to follow trustworthy leaders and follow orders. I'm not talking about these people that sit here and run around and tell you to go and attack the Capitol. I'm not talking about that type of situation. I'm talking about people who are willing to listen to truth and who are willing to listen and work alongside you when you go into battle. Now, on the other hand, if you're going to be a person that's want to follow somebody, you got to have somebody worthwhile following if you're going to go into battle. So you got to have good leadership if you're going to have good servants. And I don't see servants as being beneath anybody. I see servants as persons who are willing to serve and work on behalf of others. So let's don't get it twisted, because people tend to think, oh, well, they're servants, so they just clean up the table. No. No, that's not what servants do. That's not the only thing they do. Servants bring to the table value, because you know what? When somebody is sitting in those restaurants, guess what servers are doing? They're listening to those conversations, and they identify who's in that room. Okay. So those servants can bring information back to the leadership so that the leadership knows if they have any other enemies out there as well. So when you go into battle, you need a team of people. You also need some good soldiers. You need someone that is fit for battle and not someone who's frightened to go into battle. And yes, we all have some fear. You don't get it twisted. Any soldier will tell you, yeah, I had fear on the battlefield. But they focus on what the end game was. And so even though they may have had some fear, that fear went away when they were in the fight. Because if you're in a fight, you want to win that fight. You don't want to come up short. You don't want to come up as the loser. You want to win that fight. And so you know how to stay the course. If you're a soldier, if you're a real soldier, yes, you will have some fear. But you don't let fear overtake you, is what you don't do. And then, are you working with the team, or are you working with toddlers? Are you working with the team in the battle, or are you working with toddlers? Because see, toddlers, you're constantly giving directions and instructions all the time. But when you're working with a team, once you've given them the instruction, they execute. They execute the plan. So if we're in a battle, which we are, we want to make sure that we have the right team around us. We want to be surrounded with teams of both servants and soldiers. And don't want to have a whole lot of slackers on your hand, because they waste a lot of your time. And you definitely want to make sure that when you're out there and you have a team, you want to have a strong team. You do not want to have a bunch of toddlers, because they're going to work you to death. They are going to work you to death. So again, today, the topic is, are you ready for battle? And if you're not, you better be thinking about how are you going to get ready for battle, because you don't know what's coming next. You may have seen this enemy before, and you may have read the 2025 playbook, but you don't know all the players, because they're all around the whole entire nation. Some of them might be your next door neighbor. You just didn't know it. So you may not know that your enemy is the person that's sitting in church on Sunday morning smiling and praising the Lord. You may not know that your enemy is the person that's sitting next to you in your office environment. Hey, let's go play golf. Hey, let's go have a drink after work. And that's really your enemy. So guess what? You got to be alert. You have to have discernment. You have to be able to identify who your enemy is, but you also need a team of other people who are also being alert, who are also focused, so that you guys can have those conversations when you come back together, so that they can share with you what they heard and what they saw, and you can share with them what you heard and what you saw, because we are in a battle. We are truly in a battle at this time. The other thing is, you also have to recognize that there will be distractions going on all around you. That's intentional, to keep your eye away from the enemy itself. So be careful when you start allowing everything that's going on all around you to be your focus. Because if there ever was a time going into this particular battle that you need to stay focused, now is that time. Now is that time. Because if you don't stay focused on the real thing, and you find yourself all over the place and all over the map with all of this other stuff that's going on, you're going to lose the battle. You are going to lose the battle. So I caution us, because the one thing that this guy has been effective at doing is making sure there are tons and tons of distractions. Whatever is going on, he'll have 15 different stories about any one issue. And so now you're running off chasing after that rabbit and chasing after that rabbit. I want you to rein it in, because I need you fit for battle, not frightened for battle. I need you fit for battle. Are you ready? Are you ready for the battle? I didn't give you my scripture. My scripture is simple. It's 2 Corinthians 4:8. And this is a short one because I didn't do the whole entire scripture. But it says, we are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. There's no reason for us to be in distress. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Don't be in despair, because I need you guys to have some determination. Again, our Kwanzaa principle is to do always as much as we can to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than what we inherited. So we need to focus on why we are here. Because see, if there was no purpose for us being here, we would have been gone a long time ago. There is a reason for this season, and there's a reason that you are in this season. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. One of the things that took place in the last election, which created all kinds of stuff, all kinds of problems, is all these folks that decided that they needed to throw their name in the hat. Whoops, I'm sorry. All these folks that needed to throw their name in the hat to run for president of the United States. Tons of them decided they need to throw their name in the hat. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And so because we had so many people with their names in the hat, so many people who were had decided that, oh, well, let me run. And so you have all of these people in this race bringing absolutely nothing to the table, many of whom had one item on the agenda. In a nation of over 300 million people, one item. Well, I don't like vaccines, so that's my one item. So I want everybody in the whole country, or a bunch of you, enough to get elected president, to vote for me because I don't like vaccines. Then you may have another group that I don't like what's going on in Gaza. Sweetheart, you were not the only person that didn't like what was going on in Gaza, but you didn't have a prayer to win the presidency of the United States of America. And so I went back and I looked at the numbers on this thing, because guess what? That created another battle. So I went back and I looked at these folks that ran, you know, Jill Steins and John F. Kennedys and Cornel West. Not one of them, of all those people, now keep in mind, the person who they claim won the presidency, which is in doubt, got 78 million votes. The person who supposedly did not win, the person who they claim won got 77,303,573 votes. The one that they claim did not win got 75,019,257. Now, if you decide you're going to throw your name in the hat, don't you kind of think you needed to have identified that you can get more than 861,000 votes, or 763,000 votes, 56,000 votes, or 650,000 votes, or 165,000? And little old Cornel West decided to throw his name in the hat. Been around forever, been on every talk show you can think of, and Mr. Mastermind, know everything. got 81,000 votes. Our city that we live in have more than 81,000 people living in it. He got 81,000 votes. Why you throw your name in the hat? So when you start accumulating all of those votes, if the person who didn't get the most votes got 75,000 already, with 800 and some thousand for one candidate, 700 and some thousand for another, 100 and some thousand for another, already that takes her over the 77,000 votes that the so-called winner got. So where was the value in that? You created a false situation that ultimately creates a situation for all of us that is not in our best interest. Because when you have someone in office who spends most of their time speaking to the negativity of anything and everything, that in and of itself is a problem. I'm looking at these folks, 40-some thousand votes in a nationwide election, 20-some thousand, 12,000, 12,000, 5,000, 5,000, 4,000, 4,000, 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, 1,000, 914, 859, 364, 359. And then those that just wrote in somebody, 215,000 people. Then there's all those people that sat on the sofa and decided not to show up for the November election. So when you look at all of that, folks, we're in a battle. We're in a battle for our children. We are in a battle, and I hate to say it, soul of America. But it's kind of like that. We are definitely in a battle. So I'm going to pause for a moment and go to our announcements and acknowledgments and commemorations. Okay. On January the 20th, 1977, Patricia Roberts Harris becomes U.S. Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, the first Black woman to hold a cabinet position. This is in 1977. January 21, 1936, former Congresswoman Barbara Jordan was born. Now, that's one of my favorite people. January 22nd, 1949, James Robert Gladden becomes first African American certified in orthopedic surgery. January 28, 1898, Dr. Daniel Hale Williams founds Providence Hospital in Chicago, Illinois, one of the first schools of nursing for Black students in the United States of America. January 24th, 1865, Congress passes the 13th Amendment, which on ratification abolished slavery in America. January 25th, 1851, Sojourner Truth addresses the first Black Women's Rights Convention in Akron, Ohio. January 26, 1954, Dr. Theodore K. Lawless, dermatologist, awarded the Springard Medal for his research in skin-related diseases. January 27, 1961, Leontine Price made her Metropolitan Opera debut. Haven't heard that name in a long time. As a small child, I remember hearing Leontine Price name constantly in my household. On January 28, 1787, Free Africa Society organized in Philadelphia. January 29th, 1926, Violet Neely Anderson becomes the first Black woman lawyer to argue a case before the U.S. Supreme Court. Then January 30th, 1979, Franklin Thomas named president of the Ford Foundation. And then January 31st, 1986, August Wilson, Fences, starring James Earl Jones, opens at Chicago Goodman Theater. Announcements, acknowledgments, commemoration of all of those who came before us, who fought for us, so that we can enjoy the things that we enjoy today. And when I think about this battle, whoops, how did I do? What did I do? Can you still see me? Okay. Can you still see me? Okay.
You're still there.
All right. Just making sure, because technology can be tricky sometimes. Technology can be very, very tricky. I do those announcements because I don't want us to forget our forefathers. I don't want us to forget our ancestors. And I want us to make sure that those of you who are watching live, or maybe you might watch later, the names that I put before you, go back and take a look and look some of these people up from time to time. Why? To enrich your mind, but also to share with others. Because if this country has its way, they will wipe out every bit of our history. So each week, I give you names of groups, of organizations, of historical times and events that took place in this country. And while many of them focus on what took place in this nation, I also try periodically to make sure that we don't forget that our history did not just start right here in what is called these United States of America. Our history started long before these United States of America. And I hope with this show that it will encourage you to go and do your own research and your own investigation, because until we make that a habit in our homes, in our churches, and there's nothing wrong with preaching about Jesus on Sunday, but there's always a moment that our churches can spend some time talking about who we are and where we herald from, and something about our history and something about our community, because we have gotten to the place that we forgot how to be community, how to be in community, how to be a village, and how to work together collectively. And so many of the times that I speak to you, I try not to speak as an individual, but I try to speak to all of you as a collective, because this impacts all of us, not one of us, but all of us. The things that are taking place, the things that are going on, it impacts all of us. And as I looked at the election, I looked at the election and I said, now, if we want to win a football game, and that's a lot of times you'll hear me talk about football because that was one of the sports that I watched all the time when I was growing up. And I did that because during the week, the girls pretty much had the TV, and my mom always had a way of trying to even things out. So during the week, we always watch soap operas and the things that we wanted. So on weekends, when the college football games were on or the professional football games were on, then the boys had access to TV and they watched football. So I had two choices. I could be mad, go in my bedroom, pick up a book or read, or I could, sit there and watch football. So I decided to watch football. And at first, I didn't know what in the world was going on. But after a while, I learned all the hand signals. I knew what was running into the kicker before the referee even called it. I knew what type of foul it was. I knew if it was a 15-yard foul, a 5-yard foul, or a 10-yard foul. I knew all of that. I learned all of that. And so a lot of times you'll hear me talk about things from a football standpoint. And I kind of felt that way about the election, because those people got into an election, but they did not have a battle of substance. And so I've likened that to a football coach who's only 10 points down in the fourth quarter. And he says, well, let me bring in all my fourth and fifth string players, so I'll give them an opportunity to play the game. But I'm down 10 points going into the fourth quarter. And I bring in all of these players, but my opposition has the best players on the field. So none of these political candidates, first of all, was fit for battle. None of those political candidates didn't have a chance, and you know what, to win it. And most of them was tied to one or two issues in a nation of over 300 million people. And not one of them got 1 million votes. So when we're looking to go into battle, know who you're fighting, know what you're fighting for, and have a game plan to win. Because obviously, these folks had no game plan whatsoever to win, but they disrupted stuff. You got something to share with us, Henderson? I can't hear you. Can't hear you. You're not on.
I'm sorry. I got
That's okay.
3, 4
I know
different
you
buttons.
got all these microphones, so you got to pick and choose. I know.
Yeah. What you doing this show is because you bring a wealth of knowledge that people may not be aware of. And this is what plagues our community as well. You know, as scriptures say, no man is an island unto himself. So when with you doing this show, you bring in information that we are not privileged or may not be in excess in our future generation. And this is documented. So to always be there, because we have the problem and tendency of saying nobody was doing that. Where was y'all at when all this was going on? And this is why I was glad that you decided to take on this show, because it shows people that there were people and still is people on the battlefield. The battle doesn't stop. It has somebody has to say, I'm a soldier and I have to keep forging forward, because somebody in the next generation can pick up this banner and move it forward in their generation.
Absolutely. You are so right. And that's the other thing about history. It repeats itself. So as I share with you during my time here, because guess what? We're here for a season.
Yeah.
We're here for a reason, and we're here for a season. And so when Dr. King was here for his season, guess what? He pulled the scales off the eyes of the people that were around him during his period of time. And he introduced them, he talked to them, and he made people a little bit more knowledgeable. And then Malcolm, he also did the same thing during his time, during his season, and he addressed them. And did they always agree 100% on everything? No, Malcolm and Martin did not agree 100%, nor did Medgar. Medgar was NAACP. Malcolm was the minister in the Nation of Islam. And Dr. King and Medgar, both civil rights activists, but Medgar was civil rights activist from the NAACP. Martin was civil rights, Dr. King was civil rights activist from the SCLC. And so with lots of minds and lots of thoughts, there will be some friction. But at the end of the day, know who your enemy is and who you're fighting. Because all of them were fighting the same enemy. They were all fighting the same enemy. They just had a different path to get to their goal.
Yeah.
And so, as those of you who are out there now listening live, or maybe you'll listen later, or maybe some of you will listen 5 years from now, I hope as I talk to you about the battle, that when you see things going on in your community, that you go back and you say, wait a minute, Sister Georgia told me that one, I got to know who my enemy is. Sister Georgia said, I also need to have a purpose. I can't just get out here and just fight willy-nilly. I need a purpose for going into battle. She also reminded me, I got to put a plan together, but I also have to execute that plan. I can't just put a plan together just for, just for GP. I got to put a plan together, but I also have to execute that plan. So this message today came to me, believe it or not, and I was telling Henderson when I was about to go on the air, I said, look, I still need to do a little bit more work on this because I'm not quite ready yet, but we're just going to go ahead on and move forward. And I feel like this, even though I don't have everything, what I need will come to me in my mind as I'm about to address any of the things that are on the paper. Because guess what? A lot of what I've talked to you about today was not written down. Most of what I have is bullet points or sentences to remind me to speak to certain issues. But at the end of the day, deep down in the well of my being, words and things and thoughts and will come to me. So as we're starting to come to a close of today's show, we know, if we don't know anything else, we know that we must be fit for battle. That means we got to do our own homework. We have to do our own research. We have to look for resources. If we're going to be fit for battle, we can't rely on someone else to do the work that we're responsible for doing. So as I come to a close, I know many of you are concerned right now about all of the executive orders that are being signed. You're very concerned about the pause on government grants. Because guess what? Regardless of what you do, you are affected probably by government grants in one way, shape, or form. Because government grants from the federal government ultimately comes down to your local government in one stage or another. There's a place down here called Workforce Council. Inside of Workforce Council, there are grants that are put into those entities that create the jobs and the employees that are there. But the grants that also come into the entities also helps people with perhaps a light bill or utility bill of some sort, or may help somebody pay their rent for 1 month. So keep in mind, when they start getting all bent out of shape and saying, well, we're going to get rid of this and we're going to get rid of that and we're going to get rid of this, that can affect you. That can affect that Pell Grant that your children are using to help support them as they go through college. So it's not about just certain people. Well, I don't care about that. Mm-hmm. That's like the incident that took place with the plane. Guess who are federal employees? The person in the control tower that directs and navigates all those planes that go up and down those runways, that take off and land. That's a federal employee. Okay, so when you hear people talk about, well, we're just going to get rid of everybody, be careful. You might be on that plane when that person was in distress. Okay, that Black Hawk, that was an Army helicopter. Guess what? That too is a federal employee. So keep in mind, all of these people are supporting us in one way, shape, or form. So again, So when we look at these federal employees and the possibility of them losing their jobs, and you hear someone say, well, we're just going to put a pause on it. Some of you are going to be concerned about that immigrant. And if you're Black, you know that you have been here before. You have seen similar situations in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the early 2000s, the 21st century, which is the 21st century. You've seen it. We are in the first quarter of the 21st century. And already, how many times have we seen mishaps? We saw COVID. Before we saw COVID, what we see? We saw the whole entire financial system crash. We've been here before, folks. We've been in the battle before. This is not our first rodeo.
Hello.
This is not our first rodeo. We have been here before. So when you reflect back, you recognize that knowledge is power. However, I want to remind you that knowledge alone has no power. We have a responsibility to act with truth and with knowledge so that the knowledge becomes the power that we need it to be to move us forward and in the right direction. Do I need to repeat that?
Yep.
Because we hear it all the time. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. But knowledge is of no value unless we act on it. And then we got to act on it with truth. We got to be responsible with the knowledge that we gain. We got to use it for beneficial purposes, just like I said earlier, to do always as much as we can to leave our community more beautiful and more beneficial than what we inherited. That's what it's about, folks. That is what it's about. And if we don't get this thing right, we may not have a chance, or our children and grandchildren may not have a chance for a do-over. We have to get it right. And see, as a group, as a collective body, when we're working on these issues and we're working toward the goal of what is in the best interest of our children and our grandchildren, remember, sometimes all it takes is us deciding that we're going to give 30 minutes a week. Most of you know politics, all politics is local. It's local. The federal government can send money anyway, willy-nilly, however, but at the end of the day, you're looking to your local government to make sure your traffic lights works. You're looking to your local government to make sure that pothole is fixed. You're looking to your local government to make sure that your school is treated the same way as any other school in the district, any other school in the city. So all politics is local. Therefore, when you're in the battle, there are things that you need to do. There are things that you need to know to do. If all politics is local, you need to find some local people who can run for politics, run for office. If all politics is local, you need to make sure that you're registering people to vote. That's the battle. That is the battle. The battle is fixing those things that you can fix on a local level, empowering yourselves to strengthen your community. And as you strengthen your community collectively, you can push the state level government and the federal level government to do what you need them to do. Why? Because they know you have the votes. They know you have the votes to put them in office or take them out of office. And you need to operate with that mindset of unity. You need to operate with the mindset of loyalty. You need to operate with the mindset of that knowledge that you have, but you got to act on it in a manner that ensures that you have the power, that you have the power. And again, we're talking 30 minutes a week. Pick up the phone and saying, hey, you know, I've been knowing you a long time. Are you registered to vote? Oh, you're not? Well, guess what? I can send you a QR code, or I can send you the link to the voters registrar's office, and I need you to get registered. And you know what? When you get registered, give me a call and let me know, because I'm going to follow up with you about registering to vote. And then when it's time to vote, make sure you do the same thing again. Don't forget, it's time to vote. I need you to go to the polls and vote. These are little things that you can do with your friends and your relatives to make sure that you have a different impact. Again, as I come to the close of this show, if we had stayed focused on what is important instead of wallowing in self-doubt, instead of wallowing in self-defeat, if we had spent 30 minutes doing what I just shared earlier, or 30 minutes buying from Black-owned businesses, or 30 minutes calling people up to let them know about GA for Justice that comes on every single Thursday, 30 minutes saying, okay, you know what? I can't listen to it live, but guess what? I'm going to click on and put it on mute, and I'm going to go back and listen to it later. If we had just spent a few minutes and we talk to each other and we share with each other, we can have a different outcome. And if we had just changed our focus from division and doubt to dominance, we could have made a difference for our now and our next generation. So I need you guys to get in the battle, to get in the fight. Get out of this mode of doubt and division and move forward into dominance. With that being said, I am Georgia F. Allen. This is GA for Justice. I come to you every single week at 12 noon on WVDM. Thank you.
Once again, another great show. And I hope all the viewers that were viewing and those that are not, share this information with people on your Instagram, Twitter, links, Facebook, all your social media platform. If we just took a moment to realize with all the million of Black Facebook groups up there, you got groups up there with over 1 million people, and people around here wondering why their business is not working and why it's broke. If you're in a group with tens of thousands in there, they can't spend not $5 with you. What's the purpose of being in the group? Is in order to uplift the Black community, business, and our youth programs, you have to support them. Ain't nobody ask you to bring the whole bag. That doesn't work that way. It works on the principle of spending $1. Mm-hmm. And if we do that, we can solve a lot of problems locally in our community and show our future generation it's called teamwork that makes the dream work. Absolutely. And with that said, I once again want to thank Georgia Allen for her, researching the information she does. She's a former president of the NAACP, but I just began, not to take up too much of your time, is that I started on my Facebook page, and I'm like, people always want to write a book, but what is Facebook? Take the face off. It's a book. If you put the information there, it's always there. We should not have to have our young people today not knowing about the people, not about the ones in history, but the people that's in the now, like Georgia Allen. How many young people today know that Georgia Allen was a former president of the NAACP? That don't make no sense to me. That makes no sense. But we can talk about everybody else, but we can't talk about the people that's right here in our community. And that's why I appreciate you coming on. And we're going to be moving in this year in a new direction to bring more emphasis. Because like I keep telling people, I got a lot of receipts. I got receipts from the time you started running, from the time you was running for mayor. I got, you know, I mean, running for the city council,
Council.
and the fundraisers you used to do for the NAACP. I got when you retired from the NAAC and passed the torch. But the difference is, if I don't put it up there, nobody will never know it.
Right.
So when people are talking, who they think they is, though, because you did the work. And it's like, we can talk about everybody else in history, but don't talk about the people that did the work to where we are today. That and some of them are not even here, like George Mins and Canada used to do most of, help with the writing, and
Bruce Williams, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I got a lot of receipts.
Amazing.
I got the videos at the meetings they went to. I got them talking, to the power in the city to get changes and working everybody. But like I keep telling you, if you don't put it out there, people just thinking you just came along and just, I'm just want to be known. But like I said, it's a new day coming.
It's a new day. And we're still on the battlefield. Let me tell you, we are still on the battlefield.
Yeah.
And thank you so much again. My heart goes out to you and all that you do on behalf of our community. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Once again, don't forget to tune in every Thursday from 12 until 1 with GA for Justice, with your community activist, the one and only Miss Georgia Allen. And once again, don't forget to share this with your friends and family. Until next time, thank you so much.